This week for Savour Stories, we're on the Ging family farm, and I'm talking to Morgan. Morgan, you're going to tell us how you went from beef to distillery and still back at beef. Like, that's the main bread and butter of the farm.
It is. The farm was, myself and Anne purchased this farm in 2002. We wanted to farm ourselves, even though I come from a farming background and farmed with my father. Anne comes from a farming background as well, so we wanted a farm of our own. Tillage and beef is what I was used to and what I like doing. And back a number of years ago, when the beef became unprofitable, we decided we wanted to diversify. So we didn't want to go into milk because everyone was getting into milk at the time, and it's really, you need a love for the dairy cow to do that, which we didn't have. So I wanted to stay with the beef and the tillage. So what we decided to do was to build a distillery and use the grain from the farm to distill our spirits and bring the byproducts back out to feed our beef animals. Now, our beef animals are Hereford, as you see, in Angus, and we use the Hereford beef through a local butcher, John Murphy in Callan. He takes the beef from us and he sells it in his own shop and also into a number of the high-end restaurants and places in Kilkenny City, like Pembroke, Paris, Texas, and numerous other places are now taking the beef. The beef itself is dry aged for 28 days, a minimum of 28 days, which adds that tenderness to the beef. The animals are fed on the pot ale that comes from the whiskey distillation.
Is that what they're having there?
That's what they're drinking there now.
And no side effects?
No side effects from that at all. But the pot ale and the distiller's grain adds this beautiful flavour and tenderness to the beef, which is getting us great feedback from our customers.
So is that what's unique about your beef?
That's what's unique about our beef. So not only are we adding value to the farm with the distillery, we're now adding value to the beef.
Somebody there with an itch there behind you, Morgan. We might need to be a bit quiet till he gets that itch. So just going back to it again, uniqueness is 28 days cured hanging.
It's 28 dry aged.
Dry
aged, yeah.
Okay.
So we just
what's different about that? Normally,
if you buy an ordinary generic steak in a supermarket, it's not aged. It's slaughtered, then it goes into a vacuum pack and it's presented to the supermarket. Whereas with our product, we take it, we don't vacuum pack it, we dry age it. So it's the premium cuts, it's the ribeyes, strip lines, and the fillets. So we dry age those, which allows the meat to tenderize. This is the way it was done many years ago, hundreds of years ago in the country. Beef was hung and allowed to age, and that's what caused the tenderness in the meat. It's the same with the distillery on the farm. A couple of hundred years ago, Ireland was covered in small distilleries like mine, which were on family farms, and they fed the byproducts to their beef animals on the farm, their pigs, their chickens, their beef cattle, and then they also grew the barley for the malting for the distillery as well. So we've reinvented that whole thing here, only in a modern setting.
So nothing is wasted?
Nothing is. We have a zero waste policy. We even invested in a trailing shoe system to spread the slurry from the cattle in a zero nitrogen or zero emissions policy as well. So we're doing our best to be as environmentally friendly as possible in the distillery.
Now, you grew up in a farm in Kildare, yourself and Anne got this farm here in Kilkenny, so everything is being built from the ground up, really?
Yeah, well, it's a very old setting here where we are. It was part of the Desert Estate, so I believe our house was the gamekeeper's house for the estate. So in one sense, is in 1890s the house was thatched, and in 1911 census the house was slated. So it goes back a long way, the old house now. The visitor centre where I bring you to, that was the old stables on the estate as well. So we retained all those buildings. They're quite expensive to renovate them, but we thought it was part of the history of the place, we would retain them. So the Desert Estate, the old house, is just about 400 metres across the fields where the original house was. So we're actually quite close to the main house itself.
I say Lady Desert would love to see this industry here now.
She would, yes.
How long are you up and running?
We are now 3 years commissioned. The distillery is just over 3 years commissioned. So we are now officially a whiskey distillery.
Okay, so that, people know you as the Ballykeefe gin. The whiskey is a big part of it too.
The whiskey is a big part of it too. And just for you and your viewers, This is the first time we've announced this. We're going to release our whiskey in a few weeks' time. So it's a limited release, special release just from the distillery. So watch this space.
Watch this space. Well, I've never seen a farm like it. You know, beef, tillage, whiskey, gin, poachine as well.
Poachine as well.
Do you grow your own spuds for the poachine, or?
No, we make the poachine from our grain. You can make poachine from numerous different things, but we use the grain from the farm. So all our whiskies and our poachine is single estate. In order to call it single estate, you have to have it grown all here on the farm. Yeah.
So the beef, back to the beef, just bring that to market. The beef is you don't have the abattoir here, do you? Where do you age the beef?
John Murphy does all that for us in Callan.
And then it's who does he supply then, or?
He sells it over the counter there. He has customers for it, and we also supply it into Kilkenny to the Pembroke, Paris, Texas, and a couple of other places as well. The old convent down Tipperary they take it as well.
And
so we're only in the trial stage of the beef.
That's what I was going to ask you. This is just a new part of the business,
this
really.
Is very, very new. We're really only in the trial stage. So.
And why diversify then? Why, bring it on? Is because the tours ended, or was this always the plan?
This was always the plan, was to add value to the beef. And when we have the tours here, we got a lot of people asking us, where can we sample the beef? So
this is the first thing you see when you drive into your most cleanest farmer's car park I've ever seen. What's the first thing you see are these beautiful animals?
They're the most photographed cattle in the world, I think. You get more photographs from the stills inside.
They're great posers.
Tourists love them, love part of it. As a farmer, like the first thing I would get is you smell the cattle when you come into the yard, into the car park. And I was worried that, okay, these animals are going to have to move to some other part of the farm. But no, they're a huge tourist attraction, and that's where people come, and you can see it on our social media, the photographs they take and put up with the cattle. And now to be able to say to people, well, you can go to X, Y, and Z in order to taste our beef, we find that as a big attraction as well.
Okay, and what problems have you come across setting all this business up, this new business up? Any roadblocks?
No, we were fortunate enough in the building of the distillery. We were fortunate enough that way. It's just it takes longer than you expect. Okay. That's the one thing. Like we're 5 years at this, whereas we're 3 years commissioned now. So it took 2 years to build and get all the equipment. Because our stills, when I show you inside, they're bespoke for Ballykeefe. They've been handcrafted, handmade for Ballykeefe. You won't see them anywhere else in the world. The design, the shape, the dimensions. I'll explain to you inside of the Ballykeefe.
And do you envisage Brexit being a big blockade to you, or how do you see that going?
Brexit is a worry. It is definitely a worry, but it also can be a plus as well, because we ship into Europe. So if Brexit is going to be tariffs on spirits coming out of the UK as well as going in, then their spirits will get dearer across Europe, and it might be an opening for Ballykeefe and Irish. The beef, we're local with the beef at the moment.
So you're staying local?
We're staying local with the beef at the moment.
And would you advise young people to get into this industry, to get into farming now?
Yes, it's a wonderful way of life. It's a wonderful, but you must think outside the box. Okay. You can't just do the same old. You have to think outside the box. If you want freedom, if you're not money hungry, yes, get into farming, and it's a nice way of life.
Well, Morgan, thanks for talking to us, and we're going to visit next time into the distillery. Thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan.
Still on the Ging family farm, we're inside in the award-winning distillery. This is Ballykeefe Distillery, and the smells are incredible. Morgan, it was always a dream of yours to set up a whiskey distillery, but it kind of took a bit of a U-turn and a back road. Tell us about it.
Yes, Siobhan, about 25, 26 years ago, we tried to set up a distillery on my dad's farm. We wanted to add value at the time to the malt and barley Dad was growing on his farm. And I came up with the idea of building a distillery, and he was all for it. But we tried as hard as we could. We were unsuccessful in getting a license to distill. So roll on 25 years later, and I noticed that Dingle Distillery, the lovely craft distillery down in Dingle, they opened up and licensed, of course. So I then approached our customs officer here in Kilkenny and asked him about the license, explaining what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And he came on board, and he was happy enough with the plans we had. So lo and behold, it's time to build our own distillery.
And you started off with gin as well, or which came first, the whiskey or the gin?
Well, we put in the gin still as well, because gin, within 10 days you have a gin, where it takes 3 years and a day before you can have whiskey. the whiskey has to mature in a cask for a minimum of 3 years and 1 day. Why do you put the 1 day on it is because it has to be in excess of 3 years, so let's say 3 years and one day. So officially Ballykeefe is a whiskey distillery because we have passed that milestone of 3 years and 1 day.
You're sitting in those barrels, you've a big launch happening, 4 different types of whiskies I believe in the next year.
Yes, we have our traditional pot stilled Irish whiskey which we're going to release now first. Then next March, April we have a malt whiskey to release, and 8 to 9 months after that we have the first ever Irish rye whiskey. So it's 100% rye. We grew the rye on the farm here and we distilled it and we have it laid down in casks. So all our whiskies will be a limited offering to the market because it's a small bespoke distillery. So we will try and have our online shop and online presence to support the people who supported us, who have been following us on Facebook and that, so we'll be able to purchase direct from the distillery as well.
Yeah, what's unusual about your market is that your route to market, a lot of that, like Facebook, social media, you use that. Why?
Well, because to me, it's a way of talking to your customer direct, rather than going through any other form of media. We have a big following that interact with us from all over the world. Before the pandemic hit, we would have people that flew directly into Shannon, hired a car and drove direct to Ballykeefe. This blows my mind that people want to come and see exactly what we're doing on a family farm distillery here. They want to see the beef animals, they want to talk to me, they want to see where we grow the grain, how we distill it. Like this distillery, you can walk in and you can actually touch the stills, whereas a lot of other distilleries are kept a long way back from it. Now, they're big commercial distilleries, nothing wrong with that. But we're a very bespoke distillery, and if we decide here in the morning we want to try and make some other type of whiskey, like we did an oat whiskey this year, we can do that because we make our own decisions here. We're not led by big corporation. So we have very unique products coming out now in the next number of years, which will be very exciting, and it's a big draw for Kilkenny as well. With the tours that come to Kilkenny, they come to see Ballykeefe. So it's a spin-off for everyone else as well.
And they can come in, and you've got 4 stills here, or 3, sorry. And they can come in, and there's something different in one of these.
Yes.
And you can smell it, you can really touch it, and you can taste it, of course.
Of course, yes. So our first still is called a wash still, then we have our intermediate still, and then we have our spirit still. So the first still is where we distill off the first liquids off it, and what's left in that still is called pot ale, and that's what goes out to feed our beef animals outside. That's what adds the flavour profile to the meat outside. The second still, we bring the ABV up, and that still to about 50%. And what's left there is called spent lees. It's just distilled water high in copper. And in our third still is our spirit still. Now this is where the magic happens. This is where we make our cuts. So you have heads, hearts, tails. Heads are the poison, hearts are the good stuff, and tails are low vines which give you the banging headache the next day. So we using this here, our spirit safe, we make our cuts in that. So legally you must take out the heads because we don't want anyone going blind or dying on us. The hearts are the good spirits, what we like to drink, and then the tails are the low vines, so we don't allow any tails whatsoever into any of our spirits. Now we lose volume by doing that, but we're aimed at the premium market, so when you get a bottle of Ballykeefe, you actually enjoy it and not suffer.
Yeah, that's right. I could swear by that. I've had enough of it over time. But there's quite a lot of scientific approach in your product. Did you have to do a lot of research, go back to college? Where did you learn it all?
I learned, I did a lot of research before we went down the route of opening the distillery, a huge amount of research. And then I employed Mr. Jamie Baggett, who was the #1 master distiller in the world. We had him here on contract for 18 months. So I learned from him as well. So between the two of us then we came up with the different line of spirits we have at the moment, the white spirits. So we have our extra dry gin, we have our slow gin, we have our Lady Desert gin. These are all unique gins. We also have a poachine on the market as well, which is very popular. And we have a spice moonshine, which is the unaged spirit with spices added to it.
Incredible what you can get from one farm.
Indeed.
And all run by a family. Tell us about the team here.
The team here is my good wife Anne. She works with me here in the evenings. My daughter Sarah, she does the tours. Maeve also helps with those. Kevin does the farming. He loves the farming part of it. And Aidan is the youngest, and Aidan's Aidan. He helps out everywhere he can. He loves the bottling. So we bottle here ourselves. We do everything here on hand, in the premises ourselves here. We have a couple of staff employed as well. We have our designer for our labels. You know, there's a lot of outside influence that comes to bear on people we can call on expertise for helping with the business.
And all to end up with this beautiful finished product here behind you, your Christmas gift sets.
Yes, our Christmas gift sets, we're doing them again this year. So we have the Lady Desert and the Slow Gin. And we give 2 branded glasses with it and 2 miniatures of each of our gin in it. And they'll be available through Super Value and the Wine Centre in Kilkenny.
And online, can people order it from far away? Have
Indeed,
a Super Value on the doorstep?
Yes, they can. Yes, we do an online sales through the Wine Centre as well on the gift hampers.
And Morgan, hopefully the distillery tours will be back again and people will be dropping off in Shannon and coming straight to Kilkenny to see us.
Please God, yeah, you'd miss the tourists because you get a huge variety of people coming through the door from all over the world, different ages, different stories. You get a lot of distilleries visiting as well, groups of people. So even though you'd be tired in the evening from a long day, we start at 5:30 here in the morning. Our tours are at 4 in the afternoon. So you would be tired, but when you get to chat to people and you get to know people and hear their story and they want to talk about your story and they're wishing you well, it's uplifting.
And you can, at the end of the day, put the feet up in front of the fire and have a nice slow gin.
That's the plan.
Morgan, thanks for talking to us on the Savour Stories.
Thank you, Siobhan.